Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to The Love of Acting. I spent my morning watching our next guest. I'm sure you recognized her, Daphne Maxwell Reid. You may know her as Aunt Viv on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We'll get into that later. But she's had a marvelous career. And I have to tell you, Daphne, when in the last 2 hours when I was listening to you, it was very therapeutic for me because yesterday was a really hard day and I couldn't stop watching television. And we'll get into that as well. But from the way you talk and the way you present yourself and the wisdom that comes off, I really wanted to talk to you so you can put some things into perspective for me because yesterday was a really difficult day. So can you please use your wisdom and your eloquence to put things into perspective of what happened yesterday? Because when I saw the people with not the flags in the United States, but the flags that have Trump's name on it, when I saw those people storming the Capitol and I saw the violence and I saw that, it made me get in shock and horror, and it made me really, really sad to see the whole thing occur. And also a recurring thought going through my mind of what would have happened if they were black? What would have happened if they were not white people? Would police have treated them the same way? And then I became really angry. So the whole day I kept on being on this, highs and lows of emotion, and I couldn't stop watching and processing. So you being an activist, and we'll get into some of the things that you have done before in your life, what was it like for you to watch what happened yesterday?
I was not surprised. This has been coming for a long time. Words have an effect on people, and the words that have been spoken out of the mouth of the 45th president have been horrendous for 4 years. And for years before that, when he was in New York City, I knew this man 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I was appalled that people were swayed into voting for him as a president of the United States. So if we start there, I'm not at all surprised at what happened yesterday. He has been wanting this. He's got problems. And I refuse to get wrapped up in his problems. He has brought to fore what people have been feeling and not had permission to say. He gave them permission. He gave them permission to hate out loud. He gave them permission to act on old, tired, unsubstantiated racism that should not even exist at this point. But it brought it out to the forefront.
Yeah.
And now we have to deal with it so we don't tuck it back under and pretend that it's not there systemically. This showed what America is like. We have seen this all our lives, but we have not accepted it as really happening. No, it can't be. We've come too far for that. No, we haven't, because we haven't brought it out into the open and dealt with it. We have to deal with it. And dealing with it is finding the humanity in human beings. And if you act without humanity, without care, which is something that he is really adept at doing, you base your compass on power, on money. It has nothing to do with human beings. And if you're going to be the president of the United States, you're not representing anybody.
Yeah.
It's sad. Yes, if that had been Black people yesterday, they'd have all been dead. This shows very clearly the white privilege that is rampant that is supported, that is encouraged in this country. And it has to stop. There's white superiority should be non-existent. Human superiority is what we should deal with. Human compassion, human concern, and operating on the basis of actual truths and facts, which this man has no concept of. 13 days is way too long.
Yeah.
But we have 13 days.
Yeah, here's hoping. I did hear, that there are resignations within the White House, that the cabinet is considering 25th Amendment.
They
There's
don't do the 25th Amendment.
I don't think it's going to happen. But
they don't have time to do that, and I don't think the vice president has the balls to do it.
After yesterday, I'm getting the feeling that he may. I don't know.
No, he's still standing firm on his love of the man, but deciding to put country in front of his love for the man.
This whole experience, and my background is I came to the United States as a 14-year-old kid from the former Soviet Union. So we came as immigrants, refugees, because of being of Jewish faith and Jewish heritage, and we were persecuted there. So I grew up knowing what it feels like to be different without understanding why people are treating me differently, because we were not religious. It was just, hey, you're a Jew. Okay, what does that mean? And why is that a bad thing? I don't understand. So I knew what being different felt like. So coming to the United States, me being an accepting person and me being an interesting person interested in other people made United States even more fascinating, because then I can get a chance to talk to all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds. To me, yeah, to me, it's the beauty of it, and it's the interesting part of it. So there is an inherently something built in, which I don't understand, of how you can look at somebody and treat them differently because of anything. I don't quite get that. It's not a part of my makeup.
Systemically,
yes,
our educational system has not included the history of the Black people who made America.
Right.
All of these people who are stuck in their hate and superiority mode are uneducated. They have no idea about anything except what they were taught, what their parents were taught, what has been historically recorded.
Yeah.
They only see one side of America. And their lack of exposure is killing us. I tell you, they just have no idea other than what they have been taught. And I think that's the systemic part of the problem that we have.
Right.
As if it's totally unexposed to reality.
It's ignorance. It's lack of empathy, lack of understanding, lack of education, and being brought up in an environment where they think that the way that they believe is the right way and is the only way.
It's because that's all they know.
Right.
They don't expose themselves to anything else other than their small, clannish environment. And that doesn't make for a very interesting person, but it also doesn't make for a very informed person.
No. And when I started analyzing, as I got older, I started analyzing the kids that I grew up with. I grew up with these kids from kindergarten, and even before that, we were playing together. And then after a little while, some of them started calling me a Jew. Where does that come from? Because you're growing up in the same environment. It comes from their parents. It comes from home. And that's where all of this is starting. And if you have ignorance in the parentage, then you have ignorance in childhood. And it takes a very strong person to actually get out of that mode. And not very many people are.
Well, they
Yeah.
just have to be exposed, and they're not exposing themselves. These people don't travel anywhere but within their own environment.
Yeah.
And they are not exposed to people who are different than they are. They don't grow up with them. They don't work with them. They don't socialize with them. They don't know them.
Yeah.
How can they not believe what their parents told them?
And I used to think that, with technology comes enlightenment, or at least an opportunity to be enlightened. And I remember specifically thinking about, North Korea and thinking about the Middle East, where people didn't have access to technology. I remember, again, being in the Soviet Union, where everything was blocked and you could not have access to information. So I thought with information, more people are going to be open to it. Right now, we have access to all information, but unfortunately, what happens is people still find their own echo chamber, that they do not believe anything else there is, and now it gets even worse. So it's an interesting social experiment that I've been observing.
Well, you're going to continue to observe it if you're going to stay here, and it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah, well, I was close. I told my wife, and you've been married for 38 years, I think, 38 or 39. We just had our 21-year anniversary, so I still have a long way to go. But
Keep it
I
up.
I remember telling my wife that, listen, if he gets reelected again, I'm not going to be here. We're going to move. And I started thinking where. I have lots of friends and contacts in Canada, so I was thinking of Canada or somewhere else, because there's no way that I'm going back to where I came from. That's for sure. That's not going to happen. So thankfully, even though I still don't understand how you can have so many people vote for him, but thankfully, that part is almost done. So we're staying for now, and then we'll see what happens. Anyway,
A glimmer of hope exists.
yes, and that's kind of how it felt. And I remember Van Jones crying on CNN. I was crying along with him. Once we learned that the Joe won, of knowing that, hey, decency still exists, and you can talk to your children about being an honest person and be accepting. Those were the things that were really important to me. Even though, again, I'm a white male, so technically I shouldn't be talking, but having grown up with the discrimination from early childhood, it made me understand others, and that's,
We
I
can
think,
use all the voices that will be heard.
yeah,
Speak up.
which is what you did. And one of the things that I'm in Chicago, so as soon as I saw that you went to Northwestern, I immediately lit up, because I thought Northwestern. I love Northwestern. My brother worked for Northwestern. My one of my best friends still works for Northwestern. I want my daughter to go to Northwestern. And then I heard about your experience in Northwestern, and I got horrified. Many people don't know about what happened to you while you were in Northwestern. Would you mind sharing some of the lowlights?
Well, I was greeted on campus the first day I was there with who was supposed to be my roommate,
Yeah.
and I was greeted with a block of the door. And she looked at me and she says, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not rooming with no niggas." And I looked at her. I said, "Well, where are they?" I didn't even, I said, "This is one ignorant chick." I said,
Yeah.
"Okay, bye." And I went and found a room by myself.
Yeah.
That was my welcome to Northwestern.
Oh my God.
I said, "I'm from New York City, where I grew up with everybody from all over the world. I mean, I was exposed to so many different cultures and religions and cultural experiences. I had a broad view
Yeah.
of what life was until I got to Northwestern and saw what narrow looks like, what old tradition looked like. And I was a very secure person in myself. I mean, I was raised as a strong woman. I wasn't raised as a particularly strong Black woman because it just didn't come up.
Right.
Okay, I was Black. It had nothing to do with anything in New York.
Yeah.
So when I got there, I'm going, now she is ignorant enough to not want to know who I am. Okay, she's got a lot of experiencing to do. And all I can do is pray for her because it really has nothing to do with me personally.
Yeah.
So I went on about my life and achieved the things that I achieved there. I was in student government when I first got there. I had my head held high. I had the security of knowing myself that little things didn't deter me. And finally, I guess my sophomore year, I ran for homecoming queen, not by my choice. My roommates, sweet things that they were, decided to throw my picture in the hat because I was modeling at the time. I didn't even know what a homecoming queen was. So I looked in a couple of yearbooks. I said, oh, they go to the football game and they ride on a float. Oh, yeah, oh, well, whatever. They ain't never going to get me. So I got interviewed by some panel, and then they announced who the 5 members of the court were going to be before the queen was elected. And they called 3 names. I'm in the rally, and I said, okay, I'm going home. They called my name. I said, oh, now what? And it was about, I'd say, a week before homecoming. And at the time, I was dating a man who became my first husband, who was playing football. And he was going to be playing in Pittsburgh that weekend. And I said, oh, I want to go see his game. Well, Thursday came, and we're preparing for this parade and the election on Friday. And I was informed at the last minute, oh, you need a white gown for the float. Going,
okay.
Tomorrow? So thank goodness I have the skill to make a white gown. And I went down and got some fabric and whipped up a dress. And I had a white gown. And Friday, we rode in the parade and got to the spot. They had voted all day on Friday, and the results were in. But I had been at work on Friday down in Chicago, so I didn't get to vote. I came back from work and asked my roommates, well, guys, did you vote? Oh, man, I forgot. Okay. I said, well, I'm going to Pittsburgh tomorrow. So we get up to the stand where the president is going to crown the homecoming queen, and there's a big rally, and we're standing there in our white gowns, and a name is called. I thought it was the lady next to me. She goes, bam, that's you. I was, what? I was stunned.
Yeah.
It was inconvenient. I didn't know what it meant. And it really got in my way. So as I'm standing there being crowned by then President Roscoe Miller, he had a ring of roses that he set on top of my head and very disgustedly said to me, I have to hold this here while they take pictures. And then he turned around and walked away. I was, okay. Now what? Well, they were leaving the rally and going somewhere else. I had no information. Somebody in the crowd said, come with me, you're supposed to be at Scott Hall to present the Queen at the Alumni Association gathering or whatever it was. We got to Scott Hall and we were backstage. There were 3 girls consoling one little girl who was crying her eyes out because she was not elected.
Mm.
And I said, hey, do you want this crown? I will give it to you. I got to go. I'm supposed to be in Pittsburgh tomorrow. And they just looked at me and sucked their teeth. And each one of them was announced. You could hear her being greeted on stage with applause.
Mm.
And after 4 of them, it was time for the audience to meet the Queen. And I walked out and there was dead silence. And I said, thank you.
Mm.
And I left. And I said, this is not a good experience.
No.
And it does not bring me any joy.
Yeah.
I went back to my roommates. I said, this is really horrible. But they were so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody must have called the press because at the football game the next day, the Jet was there, which is a Black newspaper, a magazine that is read by most Black people in my community. The Amsterdam News from my hometown was there. I mean, it was Black Press Day at Northwestern, and I was surrounded by all the other Black students in the stands on that day. And that's what I remember about being homecoming queen, not about Northwestern.
Mm.
They gave me this cup that didn't have my name on it. The year went by. In the yearbook, my name is not even listed in the index. And I'm a bold person. I went to the yearbook office and I said, Madam Editor, why am I not featured in this yearbook? You had 3 pages on the last homecoming queen. She said, well, it wasn't important this year. I said, I understand.
Yeah.
And I vowed at that time that Northwestern would never again be important to me.
Yeah.
So when I left Northwestern, when I graduated, I wrote a letter that said, don't ever ask me for anything. This has been a horrible experience. I have my degree and I'm out of here.
Yep.
And it took, I guess, 30 years later, they did a capital campaign. And a young man called me in my office in Virginia and said, I'd like to come by and talk to you about Northwestern. I said, oh, go right ahead. Come on. And he did.
Yeah.
He came to my office and he sat there and he knew that I was on television. I was producing movies. I was big deal for them. And he said, and so can we count on you? I said, you can never count on me.
Yeah.
I promised Northwestern they would never get a dime from me.
Yep.
He was stunned. He had no idea why I said, no. Thank you for visiting. Goodbye. And that was the end of it for me. When my son was applying to college, he said, oh, you and Dad went to Northwestern. I said, no, you will not apply to Northwestern University.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, don't do it. So it took 40 years.
Yeah.
And 40 years later, the Black Alumni Association wanted to give me an honor, probably because I was on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And they wanted to give me an honor, and they invited me to receive this award. I said, oh, the Black Alumni Association? I'm really impressed that there is one. And I went to Chicago, got my award, and they said, so tell us about your experience at Northwestern. I said, okay, and I did.
Yeah.
And they said, we had absolutely no idea. I said, how would you have an idea? They didn't write it down. And they immediately called President Shapiro, and the head of the Alumni Association said, you owe this woman an apology, and we'd like you to make that apology. And he did, and invited me to crown next year's homecoming queen or something. And I said, okay. I was still not, the bad taste was still in my mouth.
Yeah.
But I took my son, who was a grown man by that time.
Mm.
I said, I want you to see Northwestern.
Yeah.
I told him the stories, which I had never told him before. He
Mm.
said, I had no idea that you had that experience. I said, nah, you shouldn't have needed to know. So that was the end of that. And my relationship with Northwestern is now, I have
Fine.
parts of it that I really am
Yeah.
very close to. We took over the bursar's office while I was there, and we celebrated 50 years of the takeover a couple of years ago. And
Mm.
there is a huge Black alumni presence
Mm.
now that I admire and I support. But that's
Well,
it.
yeah. I know you don't regret anything that happened in your life, so it's a part of your journey. I,
Yes, a very educational part of my journey.
yeah.
I found out I was Black.
Congratulations.
Funny
Oh,
thing.
yeah. That's yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Daphne. It's yeah, it's life, and we all have these things that happen to us, but it's a question of what do you do with it. And in one of your interviews, I loved when you said it was a very nice interview. By the way, I'm going to post it right below this because I think people need to listen to it as well. And you and the host were saying, get back up on the horse, and if there is no horse, you just walk.
Just walk.
Yeah,
Just walk.
I
Keep
love that.
moving.
Keep it moving. All right, let's get into the acting part, which is usually what we talk about on the show because it's the love of acting. Where does your love of acting come from?
I think as a child, my mother said that I always wanted attention. Okay. So
Yeah,
I was a smiler. I was a cajoler.
yeah,
In high school, I looked at, you know, playing around with acting. In junior high school, I was in junior high school, and we had, of course, a school play, and I wanted to be part of the school play. And at the time, they were shooting West Side Story in my neighborhood, so I was watching that kind of thing take place. I
mhm,
had also been exposed to plays on Broadway and
yeah,
at the Lincoln Center, which was across the street from where I grew up,
mhm,
and I
mhm,
understood the idea of acting. I didn't have enough examples of Black females surviving in that business, so it was never a thought that I would ever be an actress, but gosh, it was fun.
mhm,
So in high school, I joined this workshop on Saturdays called the Group Theater Workshop,
mhm.
and it was run by Robert Hooks, who is still a dear friend of mine. The Group Theater Workshop grew up to become the Negro Ensemble Company.
Wow. Okay.
Um, I was in it for about 3 years while I was in high school. And
Mhm.
then I graduated high school and went off to my career at Northwestern.
Yeah.
And I no more considered acting than, you know, whatever was fun. I
Yeah.
was in the WAMU show at Northwestern because it was fun. I
Mhm.
liked doing it, but it was not a career path. I got discovered as a model. So
Mhm.
I was doing that, going back and forth between New York and Chicago while I was in school.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed that because all they asked me to do was smile and then give me a check.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, this is lovely. I could do this. But as a career path, nah. I wasn't disciplined enough to be skinny and watch my weight. And
Yeah.
you want me to sit here and smile? I can do that. you know. And when you ask me to not come back and don't smile anymore, okay, I'll find something else to do.
Mhm.
So I never really considered it as a career. But once I graduated from Northwestern with a degree in interior design and architecture, I
Mhm.
really was not willing to go back to school and study more. I was still acting, modeling.
Mhm.
So I kept that up in Chicago once I graduated. And when I was registered with this particular agency, I was working a lot, enough
Hmm.
to support my family. Uh, and this guy named Robert Conrad came to town to shoot a series called The Duke.
Mhm.
And my agent said, "Oh, go read for this." And oh, okay, sounds like fun. So I went and met Robert, and we chatted, and we talked about Northwestern. I had no idea he had a connection to Northwestern. I still don't remember what the connection is, but he decided to call me Queenie. I said, "Okay, nice to meet you." Well,
Mhm.
I get back. My agent says the next day, "Well, the script came, and your character, you're not in this script. You were not selected." I said, "Okay." And I went on about my business. The next day, she called me. She says, "Daphne, I don't know what happened, but they hand wrote you into this script, and you're in this show." Going, "Oh, that was really sweet of them."
Yeah.
Well, I went, I did my job. I had some training from my former experiences,
Yep.
and I had a good time. And he put me in that series, and I worked in that series in Chicago. And a couple of years later, I decided to go to Los Angeles and leave Chicago. And I called him. I said, "I'm in LA. How are you?" He says, "Oh, I'm glad you're here. I have this show that I'm doing called A Man Called Sloan. I got a part for you." I said, "Okay, tell me what I'm supposed to do." And he introduced me to an agent who became my agent. He hired me. I had already been a member of SAG from doing commercials in Chicago. So I was all prepared, did the job, and
Mhm.
how small the world is. I just remembered the man who did my makeup on that job, because I had to age into this old woman. The
Mhm.
man who had to do my makeup's name was Tommy. I can't remember what Tommy's last name was. He was one of the original Mouseketeers on television.
Oh, okay.
Tommy was also the man I called when I did my auditions for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I
Wow.
said, "Tommy, I need you for these auditions." He made me up for each audition, and there must have been about 5 of them.
Mhm.
And Tommy Cole, and I just made the connection. I knew him from those many years back. It's a
Wow.
small world. The people that touch you
Mhm.
continue to touch you throughout your life. So that's how I got into show business. And then I was in the right place at the right time in Hollywood in the 70s, where they were looking for something to integrate with. And I wasn't too dark, I wasn't too black. So yeah, let's put her in all these things. So I kept getting hired. I
Mhm.
was in the right place at the right time, and I was prepared. And I had quite a lovely ride.
You did, and we'll come back to glamour in a second because I want to see if you have the cover. I would love to show it to our audience, but
Of course I
um,
do.
I thought tentatively um, about Fresh Prince. You, I think they asked you to audition when the show was about to get started, but by that time you and your husband, second husband already, current husband, you were in Virginia because you got tired and you were on, 3 or 4 shows at that time done, and you, okay, I don't want to do this. It's a rapper. I don't think so. So yeah, you decided to again, how serious was that ask, or was it again? It was just reaching out, agent. Okay, let's get people auditioning.
It was just, yeah,
Okay.
people get people in. I want you to go read for this new sitcom that they're doing. I'm going, sitcom. Okay, that's 5 day a week work. Uh, I had been doing film type shows that were shot different than sitcoms.
Yeah.
which is a lot more demanding.
Hmm.
Um, and they said, yeah, it's a young rapper. And I was going, oy, 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 no, thank you. Rap had just started, and I was not impressed with rap. And I
Yeah.
said, this is going to be silly. It's going to be, no, uh-uh. So I didn't audition for it. And then I saw it on television, and I said, oh, what a cute show.
Yeah.
So I missed that. But I was living a life in Virginia, having a wonderful time,
Yeah.
um, growing as a person, just having a lovely time at the farm. And they called again to audition for, well, I was doing some other shows, some series that didn't get picked up. I do a pilot
I like
and
it.
it didn't get picked up, but I had a great time shooting maybe 3 or 4 shows with them, and then, well, this isn't going anywhere. I said, okay, I go
Yeah.
back to the farm and play in my garden.
Mhm.
And then I got a call that says, well, they want you to come in and audition for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I said, oh, really? What part? I thought maybe a guest star. I said,
Yeah.
no, the role of Aunt Vivian. I'm going, there is an Aunt Vivian.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I started hearing that, well, she's having problems with her contract or something. I
Yeah.
said, oh, I'll be there. And I
Mhm.
went and auditioned and auditioned and auditioned and auditioned. And every time I did a callback, there were 15, 20 women I'd never in my life seen before. So
Uh,
that they're really searching for an Aunt Vivian.
mhm.
And by the third audition, I got to audition with James Avery. And I fell in love with the guy. I mean, he's such a wonderful person. It was a joy to
Mhm.
work with him and to audition with him. And there must have been a chemistry because I got hired.
Yeah. Was again, you were shooting in front of a live audience, so I'm assuming it was a
That was different.
multi-cam with a laugh track, right?
Yeah, yes, multi-camera, live audience. My first shooting before a live audience was The Fresh Prince, and I had been in the business maybe 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I'd even done WKRP, which was shot before a live audience, except the 2 shows that I did, they decided to shoot film style. So I said,
That's nice.
okay. So I never got to perform before a live audience until The Fresh Prince, and I was scared.
Yeah.
But once I hit the stage and the scene started, I
Mhm.
was very much in the scene and learned how to wait for the laughs. I watched them as we worked,
Yeah.
and I learned about that timing, which is what you need to do when you're doing a sitcom.
Yep.
And it was a fabulous experience.
Yeah. I again, as an actor, I haven't had a chance to be on a sitcom. This is, when people ask me what do you want to do as an actor, there are 2 things that I really would love to do, which is Hallmark and a sitcom, because I'm that goofy uncle. That's me. I'm Uncle Jesse. Um, but so I haven't had a chance to do that. So when we went to LA to uh, visit and be tourists again, we went to a taping of A Man with a Plan. So that was my first opportunity to see a multicam and see it from the audience perspective. And we were up with the audience, and all the things that I didn't realize were happening because there are people there that are there to entertain you. They give
Yes,
you food. They're telling you. They're not telling you when to laugh, but they're telling you, and they're kind of. It's a whole experience. And watching the set and watching how everything is done, it was, from an acting perspective, it was highly educational, and from just a person perspective, it was really, really interesting experience.
good, good, good. It's a whole different way of acting.
Yeah.
It's more like live theater,
Mhm.
which I hadn't done a lot of since high school. So um, it was fun. It was really fun. And the way this group came together,
Mhm.
the way they embraced me when I got there was like I had been there the whole time.
Yeah.
And they knew of my former work. They
Mhm.
respected me as an actress and they expected that I could do what was demanded of me.
Mhm.
I was not trying to be the other Aunt Vivian. I couldn't. I didn't have her chops. I couldn't dance. I couldn't sing like that. I mean, she was a presence.
Mhm.
I was not there to recreate that presence,
Mhm.
but to meld into a family believably.
Mhm.
And that's what I hope I brought to the show.
You did. Again, I came in 1989, so I've watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was a part of my kind of integration experience into the American,
Cool.
into my new American family. So it like many people, my age, it's always going to be a part of me. Still love Will, still watch everything that he does. So
He's an
it's.
amazing young man.
And it was interesting, and I know how much you cared for James. I had another guest on my show last year who's a wonderful actor, Colton Dunn. Colton is on Superstore, which unfortunately just is just ending, and he's been told many times that he looks like Uncle Phil, to the point where he actually started, as a joke and half serious, he started kind of pitching the idea of the young Uncle Phil being a lawyer with him playing Uncle Phil. So look up Colt. He's wonderful, and he does certainly have a lot of the same qualities that James did.
That would be fun.
Yeah. So let's go to Glamour for a second, and we'll come back to the show. Can you show us the cover?
Oh, how do I do this?
Just show it up to the camera.
Oh, let's see. I have to find it. I don't have the actual magazine.
Ah,
I don't think, but I have a photo of it.
yeah. No, well, if you do, otherwise we'll put an insert. But I remember you were talking about that when you were doing modeling, they didn't want you to do runway, they didn't want you to do some of the other stuff because you had freckles. I I'm thinking, what seriously? I mean, how
Yes,
how
seriously.
how bad of an industry is it where you have freckles, then you cannot do that because it's considered a blemish? I think I always thought freckles were the cutest thing, and it just adds to the personality.
From being a high fashion model, or it did then.
Yeah,
And so I could never do high fashion. I could do runway, but I walk like a duck. So they didn't, and I'm short. I'm only
yeah,
5'6". I'm not a model statue. It ain't me.
yeah.
But I
One of
could
my
sit there and
friends,
smile, and I could do editorial work, which is most of what I did was the editorial work.
one of my friends was a model. She went overseas. She did modeling here in the States, and she got out of the industry because she just, she did not have very kind things to say about
It can be a very stressful kind of environment because
it.
you are not a person, you
Hmm.
are a mannequin, and they don't treat you like a person
Hmm.
unless you are a supermodel and start demanding things. But they didn't even have supermodels back when I was modeling. They
Yeah.
had models and they had people who weren't models. That was it.
Yeah. I just for fun, as you're looking for the photo, one of my other friends, who's beautiful woman, she wanted to be a model, so we went to a model search, and we drove to Detroit, and then brought the pictures. And because I had nothing better to do, and I was just there, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do that too. So I had some photos taken, and I've never considered myself a model, but just for fun, it was a very interesting experience. But I went into it knowing that A, I'm not going to get picked. B, I'm doing this because I would rather do something than sit there for 4, 6 hours just
Right,
waiting. Yeah,
right.
such
That's
a
my
cute,
glamour cover.
such a cute photo. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's in a book um, that just came out
Hmm.
just It's fun. It's a
Yeah.
nice memory to have. Supreme Models is the book by my friend Marcellus Reynolds.
Hmm.
And I was, he put me in this book. I said, oh, I really appreciate that. This is
Yeah.
the cover of the book. I mean, I'm not that model, but I'm in the history of Black models. So,
No, that's wonderful, and well deserved, because
but
that's because I think you were the first African American woman to be on the cover of Glam.
of Glamour, yeah, back then in 1969.
Yeah. No,
Yeah. And it was
yeah.
a surprise to me. I had been doing editorials, and this was just another shot that was taken. Yeah, it took maybe 12 minutes. Sit up on the window over there. Okay, just put on some mascara and some lip gloss. Pull your hair over to the side. Okay, all right, all right. And then some guy came in and shot a couple of pictures and walked away. And I'm, okay, now go back to school. Okay. And then I
Sure.
walked by the newsstand in October, and that's me.
Nobody told you that you were going to be on cover?
No.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah.
Had no idea.
Well, that's a great surprise. Going back to the show again. I know there's been lots of documentaries. There's been a lot of behind the scenes. We'll come back to the reunion in just a second. But is there anything that you can recall that people would not know of, kind of what happened in the show or behind the scenes that may not have been mentioned?
Well, I remember fondly dancing down the halls with James Avery, going to the set. I remember sitting on the couch in the living room with the rest of the cast and having very erudite discussions about philosophy and history and just sharing books read, sharing ideas, and having James preside over Black history lessons.
Hmm.
He was quite the historian and the collector, and we all sat there and learned something every time we exchanged ideas.
Hmm.
And it was a forum that I really, really valued.
Yeah.
So, also getting ready to perform on Friday nights, we would all meet in Will's room, where music, of course, was always blasting. And we would dance, just get our energy up,
Hmm.
pray,
Hmm.
do a team rah rah, and head on down the hall.
It's
And
awesome.
it was quite invigorating. And it got us all in the right place that we needed for energy.
Yeah.
And it was also a lot of fun. We would meet the guest stars back there and have time to chat with them. And always the crew was part of everything that we did, because they were wonderful, wonderful people that we really embraced and were friends with. And it was a lovely place to work.
Hmm.
One thing that didn't come out in the reunion that people might want to know
Hmm.
is Will's generosity.
Hmm.
Our fifth season, yes, our fifth season, he gathered us at the beginning of the year and says, I'm giving each of you a budget of whatever money that was.
Hmm.
You get to design your dressing rooms to your own personal taste. Have at it. And it was a blast. And the ideas that, I mean, Karen's room, I think, was painted hot pink, and it had, it was wild. James had this moody jazz thing going on in his room. Oh, it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
That's
And
wonderful.
another thing that is very special to me is this watch that
Ah.
he gave us on our last day. He gave us each a watch, and I haven't taken it off, or I haven't not worn it in 27 years.
27 years, yeah. And that's
I had
wonderful.
it cleaned once, and it was gone for about 2 weeks, but I wear it every day, and I think about my experience with the Fresh Prince.
That's beautiful. I know, again, at least I've heard that you've all stayed in touch, and
What's
uh,
that?
yeah. Who have you been, I guess, the closest with since that time?
I think I've had more interaction with Tatiana and Karen
Mhm.
and Alfonso
Okay.
than anybody else. We get to see Joe every once in a while. It's always a thrill to see him. He's just such a great character. And of course, I was very close friends with James. We used to travel together as families, his wife and he, and my husband and I.
Mhm.
And that was the closest.
Very good. Yeah, it's he went way too early, unfortunately. Yeah. Um, okay. Moving off of that. How was the reunion? What was that like for you?
Ah, it was the most exciting thing that happened last year.
Yeah.
It made last year tolerable. It
Yeah.
was the first time that all of us had been together in one place at the same time since we left that same set
Mhm.
27 years earlier. And to be invited to be a part of a reunion
Mhm.
was a thrill. It really was a wonderful warm hug that we all needed last year with all of the isolation that we had to endure.
Yeah.
But it was also, I was proud of the way it was produced. I was proud of the way, of the thought that was put into it. We were all sworn to secrecy that we were even doing it.
Yep.
We were not to engage in any kind of reunionizing before we met each other on set. So we each were put up in a different hotel.
Wow.
And we had to be isolated for a few days because of COVID, and we were tested. And
Yeah.
he made such safety precautions. It was just a remarkable thing to accomplish. Um, and we were actually all showing up on the set at the same time on camera.
That's wonderful.
So the surprise elements were the thrill of doing it with Will.
Mhm.
His company really had their arms around how to make a great piece of programming.
Yeah.
And our director, Ricky, she was fabulous. We really did some wonderful things. Not everything ended up in the show, but it
Sure.
ended up in our memories. So
Mhm.
we really had a blast.
Since you mentioned that, I would be a terrible interviewer if I didn't ask you what were some of the things that did not end up in the show.
Oh, just some of the stories that we told and some of the outlandish dancing that we did.
That that would be great to see. I would love to see that.
Didn't make the cut.
Unfortunately. Perfect. Yeah, it's that show will always have a special place in so many people's hearts. It's yeah, he was great. Yeah. Anyway, so um, I really appreciate you coming on because again, what happened yesterday and kind of I woke up still with the after effects, and then I spent 2 hours, watching you, and you have you have what I would describe as the regal quality. It's that It's that really wise, eloquent, patient type of approach into all of your answers. And I thought, what a blessing that I have a chance to speak to you, today in the morning. And I knew we'd get to Fresh Prince and we get to other things, but I really wanted to seek your counsel, and I feel much better after it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to join you.
It's
And
my
good luck with the rest of your acting career.
thank you. Thank you.
Keep at it.
Yeah, I'll keep walking or writing or doing anything I can to continue moving forward.
Wonderful.
And thanks to everybody for joining us in another episode of The Love of Acting. This is our season 2, episode 3. And Daphne, you're a guest 137. So that's we'll have that as the lucky number. Thank you,
Yes,
everybody.
I'll play that number today.
Sounds good. If you win, I'll be very happy to hear. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.